when I do get to wear it on my chest, I think I feel really, really proud. I feel even though I was born and raised in the U.S., I get to represent that for my family. And I remember telling my grandfather for like the very first time that I was, representing, because they're old. They can't necessarily travel to all of my meets. And even when I was back in Knoxville, a lot of my meets were out of state. Actually, like 90% of them were out of state, except for state meet, which was in Tennessee. So they didn't come to very many of them. They only really came to the one that was in Knoxville. And my grandfather would always repeatedly tell me that he would come to the Olympics when I make it.
I'm here today with Asad Jooma, a gymnast at the University of California, Berkeley.
Yes, sir.
A senior, just finished his final year. Unfortunately, was cut short due to COVID. I'm so sorry to hear about that. You were a gymnast originally, though, at the University of Illinois, Chicago.
Yes, sir.
And the program got cut there, right?
Yes, sir.
Wow. And then a first-generation Pakistani. So these are all the areas we could go. But
Of course.
I would love to start with, could you just give us a quick introduction into who you are and what you do?
So again, my name is Asad Jooma. I have been a gymnast my entire life, and I guess in that sense, I've also been like an academic. All of my family is all about academics and education and pursuing further education, and so those are where my two lives kind of conjoined, and that's why I kind of picked Berkeley to come to after the program was
Wow.
done. Yeah.
So how did you get into gymnastics?
It's a good question. My sister, when I was little, she was a gymnast, and I think that's the main story that a lot of people like to tell as their older siblings, and she did not like it. And I would go in the gym and I'd run around, and there was one day where I guess I came in and I climbed the rope, and the owner of the gym told my mom that he would like me to be in gymnastics. Well, my mom, being she'd just gone to the US, she just has two kids, is confused. Why is this man asking my son to be a gymnast? Like, that's a girl sport. And he was like, you know what? Like, gymnastics is something that's huge in our country, and it'd be great for your son to do it. He looks like he would be. And again, my mom was really confused, but she was like, you know what? Like, let's try it. And so we tried it for a few months, and I fell in love with it. And we tried a bunch of sports, and this was the one that I kind of stuck with. Yeah.
Why do you think you fell in love with gymnastics?
I think when I got to a certain age, I had been doing it for so long that it was my life. Like I tried basketball, but again, I'm too short. I tried soccer and I got too winded. And I actually did my black belt in karate, but I look back now and I think they may have exploited me and my other teammates, I guess, because to get our black belt, we had to clean the studio. And I look back now, and I don't think that was part of getting a black belt.
Yeah.
So that's why I chose gymnastics, was because it was the one place that I felt like I had an identity. I felt like I could be myself and just get away from everything else in the world. This was where this is where I wanted to be. Mm-hmm.
Could you go deeper into that identity?
Yeah. So gymnastics, again, like I had said, my mom was confused about why, he was asking a little boy to be a gymnast. Because in Pakistan, gymnastics is, or even in Southeast Asia in general, like gymnastics is not a big thing at all. It's just now becoming a thing. I think the first Indian gymnast for the female gymnastics actually competed for the very first time in 2012. I could be wrong. It might have been 2008, but it was very, very recent. And so again, in Southeast Asia, like gymnastics is not a very big thing. And so for me, growing up in a very, very white town in Knoxville, Tennessee, being a brown kid going to a Christian school my entire life, I think being different was part of my identity, and I think that's where I centered myself, and that's where I found myself, was being different and being unique, and embracing all of that, because I had to, because that was the only way that I could. I felt like I could stand out, and I wanted to stand out because that's how my parents raised me. I wanted to be different. And gymnastics was the best avenue for me to do that.
Yeah. So being a first-generation American, for me, because my mom's Russian too, so although I'm a white male and everyone looks the same as me, I did have a sense of like, when I was at home, I didn't feel that Russian. And then when I was at school, I didn't feel that American.
I totally understand that. Like,
really?
100%.
And like, I don't know, for me, sport fit the role of like, Like when you said it gave you an identity, for
Yeah.
me, I was like, oh, I'm an athlete. I didn't have that before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really? So it was similar for you?
I think that's exactly where I think I was trying to go.
Yeah.
And you phrased it perfectly. I didn't really have an identity at school, nor did I have an identity at home, because it was two completely different ones in a
Really?
single day. And gym, I didn't have to attach a name to either one of those. I could just be myself and being an athlete. You're right. That's honestly exactly what I was, I think, trying to say. Yeah.
How was the world at home different from the world at school?
I mean, again, growing up in Knoxville, Tennessee, a very predominant Caucasian town, and going to a Christian school as a Muslim, like I was born and raised as a Muslim. My role at home was learning Urdu and learning and following the customs that were not apparent at my school. Following different traditions and dressing different, talking different. And fighting with my parents on why am I doing this stuff? Why am I, and I'd go to school and I'd see all these kids doing. And so that was the biggest difference. Yeah.
The culture at home, as the first generation American, right? At home, it's Pakistani.
Yeah.
And that's the world that you're in at home.
Exactly.
And then at school, it's, especially in the South, I can imagine even more.
Yeah.
It's peanut butter jelly sandwiches, SpongeBob.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Things that are just like normal
Yeah.
to Americans are not normal to immigrants.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like I don't know, I'm sure you could relate to this. I don't no clue what the meals are or what shows you're watching, but like for me it was like Gatlete and Russian cartoons.
No, exactly. And so I grew up watching like what was it, VTV? No, ZTV. That's what it was. It's like it was on Roku. I don't know if you know like the Roku TVs, but that was the way to get all of the I guess South Asian channels.
Yeah.
And that's all I'd see at home, or I'd hear like prayers being,
Really?
on the stereo at home. Like that's what I hear the second I woke up in the morning before I went to bed. And then I'd go to school and no one would know what I was talking about. And it was just, I guess I'd have to have two different identities. Yeah.
Wow. So then sport came in and it gives you that sense of belonging.
Exactly.
This sense of embracing yourself and who you want to be.
It was more of like, it was just freedom. I
Really?
didn't have to be anyone. I didn't have to try to conform to what the school was trying to make me conform to, nor did I have to embrace my culture in a whole new setting. Gym was just my escape from everything. It was the place I could go to get away from anything and everything that I felt in the real world, Yeah.
How has gymnastics shaped your relationship with fear? Because to be able to like try these things, I think a lot of people would be afraid to try because they'd be afraid of failing. And so I wonder if there's like early on, you developed a very specific framework with fear where you were just like, now we're going to try it anyways.
So my home gym, I had a lot of guys above me and below me that dealt with fear, that dealt with anxiety, that dealt with all these different things that prohibited them from pursuing the sport any further. And then I also saw guys that excelled and that got past those little speed bumps and that were able to, even if they were scared, I could see the fear on their face. I could tell when they were scared because when you can see that sense of dread, when someone's trying something new or doing something for the first time, and seeing someone do that, even though they have those feelings, and then seeing their face afterwards, that sense of accomplishment, even if they don't make it, but just being able to say that you did it is how I learned to get past my fear, because I got to see those guys do it. And I got to see all these different people try new things. And again, even if they didn't make it, they were still proud of themselves for being able to step up and do that. And I learned that I had to do the same thing. And in doing so, I was able to conquer my fear in not just gym, but I think in a lot of other ways, especially when it came to school and home. I think I was able to conquer the fear of telling my parents that, honestly, that I wanted to date someone out of the religion for the first time. I was able to conquer the fear of
Really?
telling my friends in a Christian school that I was a Muslim and I was proud to be a Muslim in a Catholic school. I think that sounds minimal.
Yeah.
But those are fearful things that people like me and you who aren't born and raised in the U.S., who come from different backgrounds, kind of have to deal with. So gymnastics, in that sense, it did help. It really, really helped get over that that sense of fear in a lot of different aspects, not just
Wow.
the gym. Yeah.
Would you be willing to go into what it was like conquering the fear of telling your parents that you were dating someone outside the religion?
Of course I can. That was hard.
Because that's
Really.
like, that's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's like
Yeah.
real,
Yeah.
you know,
No, it is,
sports
yeah.
cool and all,
Uh-huh.
but like, that's some real, like, that's a really difficult thing to do,
Mhm.
especially first generation Americans.
Yeah. So for me, it was less of a, because my sister had actually been dating someone within the religion. He was a friend of mine, and he was just a little bit older than me. And knowing that she had been with someone, and my mom, my dad, I don't actually know if he knew about it at the time. If you're listening, Dad, sorry. And I knew that they were okay with me having a significant other. But going to a Catholic school, I wasn't surrounded by any other Muslims, and there weren't many in my vicinity, in my area, in the place I live. So the only people I really could, fall for was a non-Muslim. And once I found someone that I wanted to be with, I just straight up told my mom, I was like, I want to be with this person, and I would love it if you were okay with it. And for the first little bit, I could tell that she was not okay with it. This is actually after my parents got divorced. I was actually living with my mom at the time, and she had just gotten married to my stepdad. And I would say he actually helped a lot when it came to convincing my mother of letting me be with this person, because he had been a little bit more modernized. He had been in the States for a long time, and I think with his help and just I think the sheer getting over the fear of telling her, I think even just by doing that showed my mom that I wanted it, that this is what I wanted to do. And I think by showing her that's all she needed.
Wow.
Yeah.
When did your parents get divorced?
When I was 11 or 12.
11.
Yeah.
I was like 5.
Wow.
When
Okay.
mine got divorced.
Yeah.
Do you want to go into that?
I can. Yeah. I mean, it was hard at first. There were a lot of challenges. I'm sure that you know as well. And
what was it like at that age? So where were you at in life at that age? Because for me, I was too young to even know.
Yeah.
Like I was like, okay, this is life. It's just I never even knew what it was like before.
So for me, I want to say like 11, 12, 13 in that area. I was going from like middle school to high school. I had just transitioned into that stage, and it was difficult because I could see what was happening in the household, and I could see that happening, and when it really did, it was terrifying. And it was a battle between who did I want to be with, my mom or my dad, even though I was living with my mom.
Wow.
And again, my mom did everything she possibly could to provide for us, but as a little boy, you want your dad. You want that male figure in your life, and I think dealing with that was hard. But I think I found my escape with gymnastics.
Wow.
And that's that it all kind of circles back to the sport.
So I know the program got cut, unfortunately.
Yeah.
How did you find out first?
It's funny. Junior year,
It's like an athlete's nightmare.
and what happened was it was the first week of school. Sorry, I just want to give you a little backstory on where the school was with gymnastics before we found out. Our school was doing great. We had just hosted literally the biggest event in NCAA men's gymnastics on our campus.
So it's your sophomore year. You make it to NCAAs. You compete. University president, chancellor, everyone's there. And then following that, you compete internationally, represent Pakistan.
And this was 2 weeks prior to them telling us. So we go through the first week of school. Monday morning, second week of school, freshmen had just gotten here. Again, second week of school. And we get an email from our AD. We got an email from our compliance office to both the men's and the women's team. And so there was a little bit of a drama with Beanbag over the summer. And we thought it had to do with that. I know it sounds like nothing, but it was a little bit of drama with the men's and women's team. And we thought the women's coaches we thought something had, happened. And so they were just going to talk to us.
You thought you were like in trouble for some
kind of. We thought
that
our team
happened.
had just gotten into some type of. And we sit down, and this is, like if in HPC, that little study area with all the windows.
Yeah.
We had an area just like that, except it was actually in the basement of our HPC.
Okay.
And it was with all the desks and everything. And we're there. It's 8 a.m. We don't get an excuse for half of us have class right now. And they were like, if you have class, miss it. Like that's I might actually be able to pull up the email, but literally in the email, it was like, this is a mandatory meeting.
Wow.
You have to be here at 8. We got the email the night before. It was at I want to say it was at like 12 or 1 a.m.
Wow. So
And-
2 weeks after competing
Mm-hmm.
at Indonesia, representing your country, Pakistan, and after the school hosts the national championship, you get an email the first week of school.
Basically, right after the first week of school.
Right
like,
after
in
the first
weekend
week of school, you get an email
Mm-hmm.
at night saying 8 a.m. tomorrow. Be there. Don't care if you got class.
Yes. Like
So
specifically, it said, we don't care if you have class. This is mandatory. Miss it.
So you sit down, and what does the AD say?
Oh, well, we sat down and we see the women's coaches, and they were like, I was close to them, and they were bawling. And
They were just already crying.
bawling. And
Oh my
my
gosh.
head coach, he was
I
sitting
can't
there,
even imagine.
and his face was just pale. And all of us are really confused because they're not talking to us because we don't know what.
Yeah.
What happened was they told them 30 minutes before they told us. They brought them in at 7:30 in the morning, and they said, "Hey, we're gonna cut your programs. So bring in your athletes. We're gonna tell them right now as well." That's what they did. They were very meticulous when they used their words. Sorry, they were very, very meticulous. They never once used funding. They never once used finance or even the word money. They repeated, we want to allocate and I remember this and I will never ever forget it.
Resources.
They want to allocate their resources to other places to enhance the D1 programs the school has to offer. That, and I will never forget that sentence ever, because that was ingrained into me, because you can ask anyone in that meeting how I yelled at our AD. I yelled at our assistant AD. I yelled at everyone in that room in front of the coaches, and no one stopped me. No one stopped me. Our coaches didn't stop me. No one did, because I was pissed beyond anything else. And they had no right to cut our program. I mean, our women's team, literally the year after they got cut, they broke every school record, every single one. They won their conference championships. Sorry, it makes me really, really upset when I think when I go. Trust me, I had so many meetings with Garrett. So our AD. So when he told me, I was mad. I was furious. I think I was upset. I think I was more upset for the freshmen that just got there. I had gotten 2 years. I had gotten to compete at the highest level I ever could. I got to compete at NCAAs, so I got to compete at the highest level I could in the U.S. And then I also got to just go to my first international competition. I was set. If I had ended my career right there, not that I would have been happy, but I would have been content, because I got to. But those freshmen that just got there, that committed to a school for 4 years, were told literally a week and 1 day after they got there, that they couldn't compete, that their scholarships were gone, that everything was done, and that within a year they were going to be no longer part of the athletic program. And so it wasn't even fear. It wasn't even anger towards him, for myself, again, because I was content with what I had already done. It was anger for these guys. How can you fucking do that? I'm sorry, but how do you do that? And so that was how I felt.
So right now with COVID, a lot of programs are being cut.
Yeah.
A lot. Could you shed light to athletes maybe who are unsure of whether or not the program is going to be cut, or just fans, who are seeing these programs get cut?
Yeah.
What's that reality of your program being cut? What's the reality of that situation?
The reality is it sucks, and there's no other way around it. It just sucks. And it's you're gonna go through I think, what is it, 5 stages of grief, 7 stages of grief. Because I mean, it does feel like something died. Yeah.
Really.
And but it gets better. Even for me, when I found out, I mean, I was devastated. I remember literally not eating for a week. I couldn't. I barely went to class either.
Really?
I remember talking on the phone with every single one of the parents to reassure them that we were going to do everything we could to make sure that their kids, these were most of the freshmen and the sophomores, because I was a junior at the time and we only had 1 senior. So I remember just telling, reassuring their parents and reassuring them that everything was going to be okay, that we were going to figure it out. And I had no intention of leaving. Even within the first 2 months of after we found out, I had no intention of leaving.
Really?
And then my roommate, he sat me down one day, and we were walking back to the house, and he was like, "Hey, I got in." And I was like, "What do you mean you got in?" And he's like, "I got into U of I." And I was like, "Oh, that's amazing. Congrats. I'm really, really happy for you." And he's like, "Yeah, I think I'm going to go." And I was like, "That's awesome. When do you start?" And he's like, "I think I'm going to go in January." And I was like, "Oh, you're going to go in January? You're leaving in 2 months." Because again, this was September, October-ish.
Yeah.
So around that time is when I had already started reaching out as well, because I realized that I think I had to. As a junior, if I wanted to continue my collegiate career at that time, I'd have to leave immediately, and that's why he was leaving so fast.
Wow.
Sorry, the question was not that. The question was, how do I tell again, there is nothing other than it. Again, it sucks, but it will get better. And if you really love the sport that you're doing, if you love if you love athletics in general, you will find a way to keep doing it. And just like me, just like everyone else that had to go through their program being cut. So that's what I'd say is don't give up hope, because you're not the only one that loves your sport, and because you're not the only one, it will find a way to survive.
So how challenging was it when you got here as a transfer student, specifically as a transfer athlete also?
So I made a wrong decision when I got here to take 19 credits while being a research assistant.
Really?
While competing at a brand new university.
At the number one public university in the world.
Yes, sir. I had so many resources and so many people. I remember like within my first week here, the entire guys team, at least 5 or 6 of them reached out to me and was like, "Hey, you want to hang out here? You want to hang out here? You want to hang out here?" And even on the girls team, specifically Malia Pearson, like literally, like she reached out to me like immediately, and it was really, really cool. And even though we didn't have like an immediate friendship, I was able to form those bonds with people on the team almost immediately within the first few weeks, and it felt like I was part of the family as soon as I got here. And so it really wasn't that hard. It was scary and it was difficult leaving my other team, but it was challenging in a fun, new, exciting way when I got here.
So we go through your first year, and then COVID comes in and ends the season again. Can you walk me through what that experience was like?
Not again.
Really?
That was just
PTSD.
It wasn't even me. Like, it's funny. It wasn't even me who said that. I remember texting one of my old roommates, he's the guy that at U of I texted him and I asked him how he was holding up, and his first response was, "It feels like deja vu. It why is this happening again to us?
Yeah.
Like why?" And we talked about it for a little bit, and yes, it sucks. And the reality of it is it's over and there's nothing we can do about it. And I had finally been doing the skill that I'd wanted to. I had been raising myself up the ranks. Gymnastics, because again, it's such a small knit community when it comes to collegiate gymnastics. There's a website that actually tracks the rankings for everyone. And I after every meet, I would go and check my rankings, and I had been slowly moving up, so almost into the top 10. And the top 8 is what All Americans. And I knew that if I just did that, if I just been doing what I had done all season, I could get there, and I could finish off my time as an All-American athlete for Cal, and then I'd finish off and I'd go to the Olympics. That was my goal. And then I'd finish off my career and I'd be done with gymnastics. And so having that taken from me was bittersweet. It was shitty. It was not fun, but sorry, continue.
In the last episode I recorded, we talked a lot about this concept of redemption, and like how much, when you fail or fall short, you spend every day of your life for the next year preparing for that next moment, that next shot at redemption. Yeah. And I hear that so much in your story and what you're saying. Yeah. And it makes me feel for you that much harder, because you obviously don't deserve it. And then the Olympics also was a real goal for you this year, which is incredible.
Thank you.
So are you still trying to get to the Olympics next year? Is that the goal? You're going to keep training for another year? I
would love to, and that's still my intention and my goal, but I don't know if that's still a realistic possibility anymore.
So can you walk me through what goes into a decision like that?
So my route to the Olympics is different than almost anyone else that is going to the Olympics. Most people, they qualify individually from representing their country at an international event. And that's the way that 99% of the people that qualify to the Olympics. There's a second route, or actually a third route. The other one's the team route, which, if a team qualifies, then they can pick you to be on their team. The third one is actually something called the wild card. And so the wild card is given to underrepresented countries, and there's only about, I want to say, like 30 countries on that list. Pakistan happens to be one of them, and the wild card is only given to one male and one female athlete per country, enveloping like all the sports.
Wow.
And on top of that, even if it's given to you, it's not guaranteed that you'll go, because then the Olympic Committee has to choose one male and one female from all of those countries combined to represent.
So you would have been the sole male
So I am.
athlete.
Mhm.
You
I
are.
am. Yeah.
You're over. That's already like set. Decide.
Yeah, they've already given my nomination. Like I am the wild card for Pakistan. Thank you.
Yo, yes, sir.
Thank you. I got confirmation of that a few
Wow.
months ago.
That is
And
incredible.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I was supposed to get the response at the end of, it was like the last week of April, and I'd known that the last week of April was when I was going to get like whether I was going or not for almost a year. I've known that that is when they were going to tell me if I was going to go or not. So I had been waiting for April, and then March hit and COVID-19 hit and all this stuff happened. And my coach JT reached out to me and he was like, hey, we don't know what's going on. Do you still want to train? And luckily for me, I have the best support system I could have asked for. The coaches here have been fantastic. The academic staff has been fantastic, trying to make sure that I've been able to do everything and to ensure that I would be able to go to the Olympics this year. I mean, I competed at 2 international events on top of season this year.
Really?
The one weekend that we did get off, I actually traveled to Australia. And I competed at because we competed, I think, basically every weekend from
Quick little ride over the pond.
Actually, yeah, we were gone for about 9 days. I took my assistant coach, and that was the one weekend that we had off. And then I came back and we competed at our senior meet the following weekend.
Wow.
And so
The student athlete grind does not stop for Mr. Olympian. Okay. That's crazy. Walk me through what it's like to wear your country's colors on you.
It's the best feeling you've ever felt in your entire life. There's literally nothing that does
like
that
what goes
compares.
through your mind? Like, are you thinking about your family, your mom? Like,
the first time it felt surreal. Actually, every time it feels surreal. It doesn't ever feel normal. And maybe for the guys that have been competing or the girls that have been competing for, like 10 years, where they've been going even while I was there, I remember like pointing out to all of the different Olympians that were training right next to me. I mean, there's this one guy from Spain, Zapata. He has one of the biggest skills on floor named after him. And I'm not even, my first warm-up session, he was sitting 2 feet away from me and I was shaking because I was like, I'm looking at my coach, like Brian from across. I'm like, that's him right there. And then
it's like lining up against Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan.
Literally, like that is how I felt. And then on top, like, then just a plethora of all these gymnasts who I follow on Instagram, who I've been following, who I've idolized since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Walk in, and I was stunned. I'm like a little starstruck because first of all, I didn't feel like I belonged there because all these guys have been competing for so long and their names are out there. They're all verified on Instagram. They're all like amazing athletes, and I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And my coach just, he put his hand on my shoulder and he was just like, he's like, you know what, you're here, you belong here, like you don't forget that. And I think that's when like I started to feel a sense of like calm and relax. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. A sense of peace, more or less. And so when I do get to wear it on my chest, I think I feel really, really proud. I feel even though I was born and raised in the U.S., I get to represent that for my family. And I remember telling my grandfather for like the very first time that I was representing, because they're old. They can't necessarily travel to all of my meets. And even when I was back in Knoxville, a lot of my meets were out of state. Actually, like 90% of them were out of state, except for state meet, which was in Tennessee. So they didn't come to very many of them. They only really came to the one that was in Knoxville. And my grandfather would always repeatedly tell me that he would come to the Olympics when I make it. That was what he had told me since I was little. He's like, when you go to the Olympics, I'll go. That's when I'll come. And so, like, since I was little, like, of course, like, as a little kid, I want my grandfather to be there. I want that one, like, my head of the household. I want him to come. And I think that was, like, my drive. And so being able to do that, not just once, twice, or, like, and now 3 times. And even if that was my final time, I got to do that. And it wasn't just for me, it was for them.
You have such an incredible story because it's getting your program cut is the most horrifying nightmare of any athlete. And then to bounce back from that, and not give up on your sport, to not give up on your school, to end up at Cal and compete and continue competing internationally is so incredible. And then now for COVID to steal your shot at redemption, that opportunity that you had is no longer have it. This is such a moment of like great adversity right now, but you just have so much positivity. You
have to.
And it's so inspiring in that sense.
Thank you.
And I guess I'm wondering, like, when you reflect back on your story, how does it feel, or what is maybe a better question actually than how does it feel is like, what are your last words?
I think the better question was, how do I feel, to be honest? And I feel a sense of pride. I really do. That's the best way that I can describe like my entire time as an athlete, not just in college, but all of it, because I also, when I call my mom back home, there are little kids in my small Muslim community in Tennessee that are going to not even going to my JO gym, but other gyms nearby, and they're starting in there. One of them actually reached out to me recently because he's applying to colleges, and he's like, hey, which school should I like reach out to? He sent me a bunch of videos. So for me, it's a sense of pride, because even if I didn't get to my goal and my redemption stage, I paved the way for other little kids that look like me to be able to do the same thing.
Wow.
And so that was my...
That's incredible.
So for me, it doesn't really matter that I didn't get a chance to do that.
Yeah.
It matters that when I get old, I can put my kids in it and I get to see them thrive. But on top of that, I get to grow up watching other kids follow in my footsteps and do the things that I wasn't able to do. And I think being able to see them, I'm going to live vicariously through that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's a phenomenal note to end it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Of course.
man.
Thank you.
Wow.